Hey everyone, it's Evan from the Trade Risk on Tuesday, June 16th, here with a market recap video. We're going to quickly go through some of the major indices, leading sectors, get into some individual names, and then trade ideas for the rest of the week. So we'll kick it off with the SPY, and you can see we had a nice bullish day today. We filled the gap from yesterday and we closed on the highs. So very constructive for the bulls. We once again are holding the lows of this range right around 208. You can see with yesterday's lows in the tail here, we basically double bottomed or attempted to at least bounce off of the retest from last week's lows. So you can see some of this price sensitivity as we do get into this 208 area. We do get some sharp bounces off of it. That has been so far the reaction. So now we need to see the bulls carry us back to the top of this range, ultimately break us out. Until then, we're just basically in the same song and dance range that we've been in now for quite some time. So not a lot has changed, especially looking at the S&P 500. If you do look at the IWM though, the small cap index today, we are getting really close to new all-time highs here. So not quite a closing high breakout, but very close, flirting with this 126.50 resistance level that held up as resistance back in April. So certainly a lot more constructive here in the small caps. This is what the bulls want to see kind of carry us higher. This is definitely taking the lead here, and we want to see this perhaps make a new high, and maybe that would allow the other indices to potentially follow suit in the near future. The Q's not quite as strong, but still a nice day today as well. Needs to get back above 109. Still in sort of a mess here. So there is definitely some more work to do there. Let's look at some other markets, and then we'll go into some individual sectors here that are continuing to lead and have been for some recent time. TLT is the first that we'll look at as far as other markets go. It is continuing to try and stage a near-term rally here. You can see this 118 to 119 area, this or all the way up to 120 really, was resistance. This was levels back here at the end of 2014, and you can see we did overshoot this zone here last week, the last couple of weeks, to the downside. So we really kind of sunk below it. We broke below these lows here at 118.50, but now we're starting to kind of make this V-shaped rally back into this zone. So, you know, again, the bulls, we need to see them continue here. We need to see them get back above 120 and start to carve out some kind of base, solidify this bottom, or at least a short-term bottom in this area. So for now, it's very mixed signals here on multiple time frames, but we're trying to see some stabilization here in the near term. Gold continues to kind of chop around in this bottom end of a longer term range, as does silver, so not too much to say about them. USO, this one again is consolidating a little bit, getting interesting here as it's getting pretty tight around this $20 level. It's hugging pretty close, hasn't quite given us a clue as to which way the next directional move is going to be. Again, it had this nice rally off of the lows here from March all the way up to $21 into the first week of May, and now it's just kind of going sideways. So had a nice uptrend, a nice bullish run here, and now it's starting to digest it a little bit. So it's certainly healthy action. Again, you need to zoom out here and look at where it's come from and see this large downtrend that of course has been in place since mid 2014. So that is sort of the overhead momentum on the longer term time frames that is challenging this near term trend higher. So keep an eye out for USO. Let's see which way that one ends up tipping its hand. UNG, again, this one is trying to stabilize here in the near term as well. Still in a pretty clean holding pattern here. Some very actionable levels, 1450 and 1510. Need to see those get taken out to get excited about some further continuation to the upside. Let's get into some other markets now. So leading sectors, that is XLF. This continues to be sort of where the bulls are rotating to. XLF, we want to see this sector, which is the financials, continue to make new highs. We're at 52-week highs now. The uptrend on the weekly time frame, which is what we're looking for, is very much intact. So let's see if we can continue to see strength here again, and hopefully with some of these sectors that we're looking through, we need to look for these to see if they can head the broad market indices higher. So XLF is the first. XLV continuing to improve here. We had a little bit of shaky action, but it is digesting kind of nicely here above some previous resistance right around 74.50 or so. So look for XLV to continue to improve, potentially make a run to new highs. Semiconductors are trying to stabilize. They were aggressively leading, especially with some of the M&A activity right around this this time right here a few weeks ago at the end of May. We saw that quickly got given up, but now you can see with today's session trying to stabilize us again. Need to get back above effectively $58 to really see this this sector improve. So keep an eye on the semis. And then finally, IBB still holding real high and tight, very resilient, won't break down, hasn't quite broken out. So we're just waiting to see kind of what happens here. So there's a lot of holding patterns right now in the market, but I think the key ones to key off of is certainly the IBB, the biotechs, the XLF as we discussed, and then the small caps at these highs here. So those are the three sort of clues that I'm waiting to see how they resolve themselves in the coming days. And of course, before we move on to some individual names, we do have the FOMC minutes out tomorrow, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So perhaps I don't know if that'll just be a non-event or if that'll send some movement through some of these markets, but that one should be interesting for tomorrow. Let's look quickly at some of the leading suspects that we look at. Apple's first. You can see I talked about this in my weekend blog post. We did hold this in this sort of rising trend line just as the bulls needed to, for now at least. So we came down, tested it, it held, saw some continuation today to the upside. Let's see if Apple will continue to hold here. Needs to hold this rising trend line on the downside. 130 or so on the upside is what we should be watching. Google, this one still continues to hang out here, 556 or so on the upside, and it's just trying to hold on to these lows. So still in a little bit of a messy pattern there. Just needs a little more time. Netflix, again, this one returned to sort of off to the races, still above all of these fast moving averages. Still looking like a monster uptrend. Again, tough to get involved in this, but continues to pay if you are. So congrats to everybody there. Amazon, this one's still, I still like the pattern here, but still nothing has really come of it. We're looking for this trend line on the upside, 435 or so, to break to give us a signal that that a new leg higher might be forming. And on the downside, you got to watch this rising trend line. Really 420 or so, I think, is a good line in the sand. You get this big open gap here from earnings, so that's what the bulls are trying to defend right now. Back to some of the social names. Facebook, still not that interesting. It's tough to, we haven't really seen clean momentum in this name in quite some time, and it doesn't really show any signs of continuing or resuming that momentum anytime soon. It's still kind of hanging out here in a broader term sideways range, so just grinding action pretty much in Facebook, so not too exciting there. Now Twitter did have some excitement. It was getting pounded today, down I think 3.5% at one point, below, made it all the way down to 33.50, not quite the all-time lows. If we zoom out, all-time lows from May were right under $30. So the interesting thing to note is the sharp reversal today ended green on the day, especially after spending most of the time red and significantly red compared to some up markets. So that's an interesting interesting action today in Twitter. Not too much to make of it, just given the context. We're still in a strong downtrend. Moving averages, the fast ones, are still racing lower, so we can't get too excited here. But perhaps this sensitivity that we saw today right here is maybe indicative of a short-term low that wants to be in place, that could be in place. But again, we need to see a lot more action, a lot more evidence that that is the case. So Twitter, certainly something for us to keep an eye on going forward. Next, we'll look at Alibaba, and this one continues to slide lower here. Again, this one is hanging on to this open gap as well. So let's see if the bulls can continue to defend. Still a little bit messy now. Moving averages, the fast ones, are curling over, so kind of just a wait and wait and see for a better opportunity. And GoPro, this one had a pretty flat day today. Well, actually, it was down 56 basis points today, but we'll have to keep this one on watch too. It's still in this intermediate term rising uptrend here. It's holding on to it. The orange line here is the 20 period EMA, and it seems to be respecting that pretty nicely. So until you see something like that, until you see us close below that line, for example, all signs still look good here. Again, still tough to get on board, but GoPro for now still looks relatively constructive. Let's see if we can get a cleaner setup in that going forward. Now, for some trade ideas going into the rest of the week, MLNX, this is one I picked up today. Breakout here to new 52-week highs. This one looks good. It was tight for a couple of weeks, basically the month of May. We had a nice explosive 3 3/4% move to the upside today. So I'm going to look for that one to continue to run today. We'll see if we can get that into the rest of the week. ORCL, here's another one that has been going sideways here for quite some time, basically all of 2015. This is a tough one too, where you kind of get a 1 or 2 day up move followed by a down move, and momentum doesn't seem to really stick in this one either. So hope maybe this is changing this time and we could get a sustained uptrend. So look for some continuation above today's highs. We had a little bit of fade here into the close, but nothing too dramatic. So I think it's still holding above the major 4450 area where the bulk of supply has been. So I think ORCL could be pretty interesting going forward. Next is PRTY. This is a recent IPO here, and not a lot of action to talk about. Above 2210, above these recent highs here, this one could get moving here. Again, a recent IPO could be pretty explosive, so it's been just a lot of sideways here, holding above its IPO price, so could get interesting. Just keep that one on watch going forward. HSIC, here's one that I've been talking about. You can see daily time frame how it's been pretty clean here. If you look at a weekly chart though, you can see really looks good. Nice impulse leg to the upside to finish off 2014, and then we've basically been going sideways for over 5 months, really tight, holding up really high. So I really like the setup here, mostly on a weekly time frame above 143.50 or so. I think that one triggers pretty nicely. And then finally GRA, I think is another good looking one here. And sorry, I don't have my lines drawn on these last couple ones, but above 101.35, basically above Thursday's highs. I think this one looks pretty good as well. You can see we had a nice gap up here in February, and it's digested it very nicely on this little sideways consolidation. So I think above recent highs here, get some follow through tomorrow, and this one could start to really go. Look at it on a weekly time frame. My chart wants to load. You can see this was some previous areas here that has caused the stock to halt. So that one looks good. If we can just get some more continuation, keep that on your radar. And that is all I have. So good luck trading. Remember, we got the Fed tomorrow. And until next time, thanks for watching.